Raiden Project is a collection of 2 arcade coin-op games from the top-down shoot-'em-up series Raiden. The 2 games in question are, of course, Raiden 1 and Raiden 2. Now, Raiden was initially released as an arcade game in 1990, and within the next 2 years it was ported onto home consoles such as the Sega Genesis, the Super NES, and the PC Engine. Of these 3, the Sega Genesis version reigns supreme, as firstly, our character's ship starts where it leaves off when you lose a life, and the frame rate is pretty good. The PC Engine has better graphics, but gameplay feels a little slower. And then there is the Super NES version, which is trash, simply because this version has the frame rate of a billboard, which unfortunately makes controlling our protagonist seem a little jumpy or delayed, and as you can see, with the ceaseless enemy fire, it's a recipe for disaster. The initial ports were released in the early 90s, which surprised me to see a port of this game being released on the Sony PlayStation. The Raiden Project was initially released in Japan on January the 27th, 1995, and later in North America on September the 9th, 1995 as a launch title. When we boot the game up, we see that there is an option to play Raiden 1 or Raiden 2. Let's begin with the original Raiden. Well, this is clearly the best of the ports, as it stays faithful to its arcade counterpart. My first impression of the Raiden Project is that it is harder than the Terminator's cock. The frame rate is awesome, the controls are calibrated nicely, when you die, you continue exactly where you left off, all great features. Raiden 2 is a much more recent game than Raiden 1, being released in 1993. The Sony PlayStation is no stranger to having ports of games released in 1993. See Ridge Racer, Air Combat, and Doom for other examples. So its inclusion seems to make a little bit more sense in why it constituted a full PlayStation release. Now, enough with the history. Let's move on to the games themselves. In Raiden, the game takes place on Earth in the year 2090. The planet is under attack by advanced alien species with sophisticated weaponized technology, and we are the pilot for the most advanced fighter plane to date, called Raiden, which translates to Lightning Bolt. I just absolutely love a simple story. Now, Raiden 1 has 8 missions ranging from countrysides to major cities to high seas all the way to outer space. Raiden has a top-down view where the scenery is below our craft and enemies come down from every side of the screen to attack us. Thankfully, our ammunition is infinite and there are plenty of upgrades that we can pick up. These upgrades include Red Vulcan bullets, blue lasers, nuclear missiles, homing missiles, thermonuclear bombs, blue sky ferries, and full power. The blue sky ferries will come and aid us when our fighter plane is destroyed, and full power adds an upgrade to any currently equipped weapon. Unfortunately, when a single bullet hits our fighter jet, we lose a life. We only have 3 lives and 3 continues, which sucks for those who are new to the game, but forces players to get better if they are hungry for what is next. There are cheats we can enter if we want infinite continues, but let's just not and say we did. Not to mention, there is actually an option where you can have 6 or 9 continues, or if you're a sadistic bastard, you can have merely 1. Credit, that is, no continues. One thing I really love about the PlayStation version is you can hold the triangle button to rapid fire. Aside from that, it's business as usual, D-pad to move, square to fire at normal speed, why would you do that, and circle or X to drop bombs. Raiden 2 is very similar to the first game, except that the graphics are more modernized, giving it somewhat of an SNK Neo Geo aesthetic, and the weapons kick even more ass.
How much ass are we talking about?
The purple plasma laser just completely obliterates our enemies because it homes in on them. I almost feel like I'm cheating, but in a positive way. We are also blessed with cluster bombs. In both Raidens, the power-ups vanish when we lose a life. Also, with either game, a second player can join in at any time in co-op. The Raiden Project was difficult for me to nail down a grade because on one hand, it's objectively a good arcade game. Both the first and second installments are great. There are features that the PlayStation version has that the other home consoles did not include. On the other hand, these games aren't exactly new. They are older arcade ports, especially the first one. They aren't exactly pushing the hardware or giving the player something new. It would be like if Pac-Man were released on the Super NES as the original 1980 version with Pac-Mania from 1987 as an add-on. So with that said, I have to give the Raiden Project a C+. It was good, but I think it could have delivered a little bit more to the platform. See you next time.